Hey my dudes, welcome to my once a week bakery. It's called Bageriet Lördag, the Saturday bakery. I make all the pastries right here in my apartment. I sell pastry boxes, and every week on Tuesdays at noon, I share a link in my stories on Instagram and on TikTok, and people fill out an order form and they pre-order and pre-buy a box for that coming Saturday. I spend Wednesday through Friday prepping everything, and then on Saturdays, I wake up really early in the morning, I bake everything off, and I pack everything into the boxes, and then people pick them up. In the box this week, we have a vanilla mini cake with vanilla, Swiss meringue buttercream, and a Swedish plum jam, a Charlotte's Mums brownie, a mazarine flavored with salted almonds and rum, and a sockerkringla, which is a Swedish style bun dipped in sugar. In this video, I'm going to take you through my entire week from prepping to baking to packing up and meeting customers. Let's get into it. Wednesdays are always for prepping. I need to scale out all of my recipes, fold boxes, and do some small tasks. I put my task list for the week on the fridge and ground some cardamom for this week's buns. Then I jumped right into scaling. I was so tired, but as the song goes, there ain't no rest for the wicked. I was talking to someone recently, and after hearing my schedule, they cautioned me not to work too hard or I would burn out. They don't know me well, and the comment was made with good intentions, but I thought I'd just shine a light on how I can work as much as I do. I run this bakery from my apartment, but I also have a 9-to-5 office job. The thing is, I've burnt out before. I burnt out for my last restaurant job in 2019. The pressure was insane and I wasn't handling it well. There was a period of time I was going to a therapist, a psychiatrist, and a life coach just trying to keep my head above water. The job made me feel as if it was all my fault. I wasn't that good. Well, simultaneously, I also worked in one of the best restaurants in the world. I honestly have never felt worse in my life. I remember telling one of my chefs that I was having a hard time balancing production, testing new recipes, and admin. I really wanted to do more admin as I felt our systems weren't very good. We were trying to really push on how many menu changes we wanted to do each season, and I was still responsible for a large part of production. When I expressed my need for support, I was told to just come in and test recipes on my day off. I was already working at least 60 hours a week, though the timesheets were doctored, so it looked like I was only working 50. Anyway, none of this will be surprising to anyone who has ever worked in fine dining. In fact, you might even think that this is how it should be. I was certainly told that. When I complained about the hours, I was told stories from my chef's youth where they worked 18 to 20 hours a day, didn't have time to go home, so just slept in the train station between shifts and were grateful for the opportunity. I'm telling you all this because compared to that, my life now is so easy. Yes, I work a 9-to-5, but I sit down all day, I write a few emails, I have a few conversations, or maybe run an errand or two. I go home and bake in amounts that are silly small compared to what I've made in bakeries. I work on my feet for a couple hours and I can take as many breaks as I want. No one is screaming at me, no one is throwing things, and no one is threatening to murder the fish guy because the tuna didn't show up. I do things at my pace, at my standard, which okay, I work quickly and I have a sense of urgency because I was trained to, and yes, my standard is high, again, thanks to the training I've received, but I also know I am not perfect and no one is expecting me to be so. I certainly hope you guys aren't, because I am not. So I don't think that I'm going to burn out, because this time I'm in control of my time and my choices. Case in point, I didn't do some of the small tasks I had planned for today because I was too tired, so they will get done tomorrow, and that's fine. On Thursday, the first thing I did was take some Swedish plums from the freezer. I had bought them earlier in the week but didn't have time to make jam with them, so I just froze them. I threw them in a pan to roast, one to defrost them, but also to get them hot so it would be easier to get the pits out. As soon as that was done, I started on the first of 2 doughs for the sugar buns. I put the mixer to the side and made the vanilla butter filling for the buns, then made pan release for tomorrow. Since the cakes this week are vanilla, the pan release is made with butter, oil, and flour. When the cake is chocolate, I make it with cocoa powder instead of flour. Next up was tart dough. This is really soft when it's made and needs quite a bit of time to chill in the fridge, so it's best to make it the day before you need it. I divided the dough into 3 rounds, making rolling out tomorrow easier. By this time, I felt the plums were done, so took them out of the oven. In retrospect, they could have gone in for another 10 or even 20 minutes, so they could have burst even more, but oh well. Dough number 1 was done, so I put that in the fridge to rest and got dough number 2 in the machine. I took out everything for the brownies and got to work. Each pan was lined with parchment and brushed with cocoa pan release that I had left over from last week. I really like this brownie recipe because it only needs 1 bowl and doesn't require melting chocolate. I mean, I like a melted chocolate brownie, don't get me wrong, but it's nice to switch it up sometimes. The only thing with this particular recipe is that the final batter can be very stiff and sticky, which can be a touch annoying. I divided the batter evenly between 2 pans and popped them in the oven. Dough number 2 was done, so I put the mixer away and took the first dough from the fridge. The second dough went in to chill, and I rolled the first dough into a large rectangle. I plopped on half the butter filling, spread it out over the whole thing, filling and then folded the dough into thirds. I rolled it out again, then cut strips and placed those to the side. Each piece of dough was twisted and then twirled into like a pretzel shape. This is the traditional shape of sockerkringlor or like sugar buns, and I always think that they are just so cute. Once all the buns were twisted, I put them away in the freezer drawer. They need to freeze solid before I can place them in plastic bags for storing in the freezer. By this time the brownies were done. I put them to the side to cool and got started on dough number 2. Same thing again. I rolled out the dough into a large rectangle, slapped on the filling, spread it out, folded the dough in 3, rolled it out again, cut strips, put them to the side, and twisted all the buns into little twisty pretzels. I put those away into the freezer as well, and then it was time to deal with the plums. This is all I did for the rest of the evening. It took me like another 2 hours to process the plums, make jam, and clean up, and I just didn't bother filming it, so you're gonna have to trust me that I got it done. Friday is mini cake day. I took out all my mini cake molds and brushed them with pan release. I've been getting a lot of questions about these molds, so to quickly answer my most frequent ones, the molds are from Fat Daddy-O's, which is an American company if you couldn't tell by the name. They are 3 inches by 3 inches and the ones with removable bottoms. Even though the bottom is removable and the cake batter is pretty loose, they never leak, or at least not more than a drop or 2. It's never been a problem for me. I filled the molds on the first tray, popped them into the oven, and filled the other 3 trays while the first baked. I can bake 12 on a tray, and each bake takes about 25 minutes, so this whole cake project start to finish usually takes me around 2.5 to 3 hours. Once all the molds were filled, I made a coffee flavored dark chocolate ganache. I like to use espresso powder because it doesn't add any liquid to the cream, so it doesn't throw off my ratios. The cakes were shuffled in and out of the oven, and I poured half the ganache over each tray of brownies. The ganache was quite thick, so I had to smooth it out with an offset. I sprinkled shredded coconut over the ganache and then packed the brownies up and put them in the fridge to set overnight. Next, I chopped salted almonds for the mazarin filling. Mazarines are like little almond tarts, and the filling is similar to frangipane. I normally make them with plain almond flour, but the salted almonds add a little bit of that something. I also mixed in some dark rum at the end. I packed that away for tomorrow, kept baking cakes, and moved on to the Swiss meringue buttercream. This week, the SMBC is vanilla, and I used some vanilla paste that I had picked up the last time I was in the States. The buttercream popped together so quickly and easily this week. I rarely have trouble with it. Once you get the technique down, it actually is a really easy frosting to make. I packed it all away and put it in the fridge. All the cakes were baked and it was time to flip them out. I ran my offset around the edge of each of them and then just turned them over, and the cakes fell right out. I scraped the bottoms off and then wrapped the trays tightly in plastic and put them on the speed rack. Usually by this time I'm done for the day, but I was moving kind of slowly today while baking the cakes, so I still had to line the mazarine shells. I arranged all the molds and sprayed them with spray fat. Then I took out one piece of tart dough at a time and rolled it out. I tend to be pretty liberal with the flour so nothing sticks. I punched out large rounds of dough and then folded each one into a little mold and pressed it in. Once all of the dough rounds were used and the shells lined, I scraped away the excess. This is actually one of my favorite things to do. It's just difficult enough. You have to concentrate, but not so much that it's stressful. It's just really repetitive and like meditative and flowy. I don't know. I love it. I put all the molds on a tray so they could chill in the fridge overnight. Saturday started super early. I usually get up around 5 a.m., turn the oven on, make some coffee, set up the lights, and get myself together, and I'm ready to bake sometime between 5:30 and 6. Axel had pulled the buns for me the night before, and by the time the oven was hot, they were perfectly proofed. He usually gets home from his restaurant job around midnight, which is the perfect time to pull the buns from the freezer so they can defrost and proof in time for me to bake them off first thing in the morning. These particular buns don't get any egg wash or sugar syrup. Their garnish comes later. So all I had to do at this point was just bake them off. Once those were pretty much done, I started prepping the mazarines for the oven. The tart shells came out of the fridge and I arranged them onto 2 trays and then mixed up the mazarine filling. This had been made the day before but was stiff from sitting in the fridge, so I gave it a good stir to loosen things up. I put the filling in a piping bag and piped the shells about 3/4 full. The first tray went into the oven and I set up for cutting brownies. These had been chilling in the fridge overnight so everything could set. I'm calling these kärleksmums brownies because they were inspired by the Swedish pastry kärleksmums. If you're wondering what that translates to, it literally translates to love yummy, which I absolutely hate in English. Like, it's cute in Swedish, but love yummy? Really? Terrible name. Anyway, they're usually more of a chocolate cake with like a thin layer of chocolate coffee glaze and shredded coconut. This is like the extra version. Anyway, I put all the brownies on a tray and went back to the mazarines as the second batch was baked. I flipped those over too and then made a rum glaze. I had reduced some rum yesterday, so I mixed that with powdered sugar first. It was still too thick, so I added a splash more rum just to loosen things up a bit. I spread a layer of glaze over every single one. I love doing this. I think it's so fun, even though it takes me forever. When those were were done, the buns were all cooled, so I brushed them with melted butter. I brushed every tray with a thin layer and then waited a few minutes until the butter was no longer so wet. I then sugared the buns. I just love taking each bun and like smushing its little face in the sugar. It's like cute aggression, you know? Last up was cakes, so I remixed the SMBC. It like sets and gets stiff, so I remixed it and heated it up a bit just to get it all loose and pipeable again. Once that was done, I took the cakes out of the plastic, filled my piping bag, and got to piping. I decided to do something new today and went with a star tip, and I was so into it. I thought these cakes turned out really cool. Once all the cakes had a dollop piped onto them, I took a spoon and made a deep indent, and then I filled each indent with plum jam. Matilda came over and we packed all the boxes. I was really flowing today and everything got done quickly and easily. We packed up the wagon and headed out to the park to hand out the boxes. And that's it for this week. Thank you guys so much for watching. I've typed up the recipe for the salted almond and rum mazarines, and it's now on my Substack, available for paid subscribers. To get Bageriet Lördag pre-order announcements and updates, follow at Bageriet Lördag on Instagram. For behind the scenes vlogs, you can follow at Cecilia.Talone on both Instagram and TikTok. For long-form vlogs just like this one, as well as recipe tutorials like for the sockerkringlor, you can hit that subscribe button down below. I hope that you have a great week and that I'll see you around next week. Hej då!